thing I have heard constantly anytime Africa comes up is the word potential. Much is said of the endless possibilities that can be found in the hundreds of millions of young persons in Africa, full of energy and promises. But just immediately after that, the next thing you hear is how this potential does not yet have the infrastructure to drive it. A few years ago, I sat down with some colleagues and we began to look at the payment system in Africa. And we started asking some fundamental questions. Why is African payment not unified? Why is African payment not decentralized? Why are there multiple fees and charges? Why are there frictions? Sometimes you make purchases and you make payments, the money leaves your wallet, but it doesn't get to the other party. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes you hope for the fund to be reversed, and sometimes it never gets to be reversed. So who pays for that time wasted? How do we solve the liquidity crisis in Africa? Today you hear the stories of young entrepreneurs, startups raising fabulous amount of money, and the next time you hear, oh, they folded up. What makes a man that have raised over $5-10 million suddenly go bankrupt, not able to run it? Besides the governance issue, poor governance issue that pervades most companies across Africa, but the major issue is the issue of liquidity. How do we solve that issue and make sure we have a thriving ecosystem that can fully drive financial inclusion and take financial access to those at the bottom of the economic pyramid? And that was what led us, because first you need to identify what are the challenges, then you begin to profile solutions. And we came to one reality, and that reality is to design and to build a one payment ecosystem. An ecosystem that is integrated with both Web 2 and Web 3. An ecosystem that is built on the back of a blockchain. A one ecosystem that can speak to payment, that can speak to remittance, that can speak to capital raising, that can speak to trade, that can speak to tokenization. How can we help governments across Africa, entrepreneurs, those in large real estate projects to begin to raise capital to drive and accomplish their dream? And in an emerging world of technological advancement, one of the key technological tools that can drive that is tokenization via fractional ownership, where you are able to ride on the back of that with regulatory approval, raise the needed fund that can drive you to fund your critical infrastructure. And that was what got us thinking. And at the end of the day, because to whatever the mind of man can believe, and you put your mind consciously and creatively towards it with the right partners, without competing, but complementing and collaborating, then success becomes imminent. And that was exactly what we did. And to the glory of God today, we're on the verge of launching something never happened in this, have ever seen in the continent. And that is building a super independent African OS operating system, a Google-like payment infrastructure with an enterprise solution platform for young developers like you, where you can actually come and build your ideas without spending any money until you get to commercialization stage. And also to create the needed liquidity pool, we'll be launching a utility token, a first African native utility token that is also backed with dual regulatory approval. On the back of that, we can raise the needed capital, put it in an escrow account where grants can be provided for young developers with creative and disruptive ideas. For we believe these are ways to drive the Africa of our dream. These are ways you can create a sustainable economy and make Africa a very beautiful place. Recently, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I asked him, what do you see about Africa? What do you think of Africa? When you think of Africa, what do you see? In this age of digital revolution and an emerging market, which is Africa, for you to build the Africa of our dream, there are certain fundamental questions and principles you must abide. When you think of Africa, what image do you see? Some of us see poverty. Some see hunger. Some see unemployment. But what do you see? For those of you that are Christian here, you remember the story in the Bible where Jesus Christ on one sunny afternoon was walking with his disciples. And suddenly, as a leader, he paused and he looked around and he said, come. You guys have been following me. Who do you really think I am? And some of them looked at him. Some said, you must be Isaiah. Some said, you must be Jeremiah. And they all speculated. And Jesus, okay, this is what they say about me. But you guys have been following me closely. Who do you really think I am? So at that point, Peter, based on conviction and the knowledge of who the master is, proclaimed that thou art Christ, the Son of the living God. So you cannot walk and succeed in a thing, in a continent, in a place, in an organization, if you do not fully adapt and imbibe and key into the dream, the revelation of that organization, of that continent. You can't benefit from Africa if you do not really appropriate Africa. So therefore, what do you see, or what do you have in mind when you hear about Africa? Do you see hope and despair? Do you see opportunities or challenges? Do you see possibilities or impossibility? For me, I see possibility. And you should see also possibility. And like I've always said, Africa needs to begin to create and to carve out for herself an authentic continental economic template that we can ride on to be able to drive the dreams of this continent. I feel very sad when I see organizations like Google, like Apple, ranging between $3 to $4 trillion in valuation in GDP. And yet Africa, with a population of over 1.4 billion people, arable land, vast human resources, vast natural resources, and great human capital, we're still struggling at below $2 trillion in valuation in GDP. I think it's an aberration. I think it's a shame, but something can be done about that. Africa's perception in the world is something we need to do all we can to change that narrative. With the multiplicity of opportunities in Africa, within the Africa 54 countries, diverse opportunities abound, rising from the challenges in these various sectors, from the power sector to the agri sector, to the mining sector, the educational sector, the health sector, the social sector. There's something to be done. All you need to do is to look at the environment, find out what are the problems needing solution, and provide the solution. In all these sectors I mentioned above, poor leadership, policy inconsistency, poor enabling environment are always a major stumbling block. Another major stumbling block is the mind. When you have a mind that is full of envy, when you have a mind that's full of negative competition, wanting to pull the other person down so as to rise, you don't rise by pulling other people down, but you rise by pulling others up. And when we work as Africans, as team, as brothers, then we'll be able to realize a better dream of a greater Africa, an Africa that can truly birth the desired digital revolution and take advantage of the emerging markets. And when you talk about digital revolution, what does it really mean? When people hear the phrase digital revolution, they often think it's about technology. Yes, technology is there, but it's not just all about technology, because technology is just a tool. The real revolution is about access. Who gets creates, who gets the benefit, and who gets to decide the direction of the change. It is about power shifting from institutions to individuals. Once upon a time, you needed permission to build a business. Today, all you need is an idea, a phone, and an internet, and a connection. From the comfort of your zone, you are able to create business, you're able to make money and to take care of your family and your home. That is what makes this moment so important for emerging markets like Africa. And we must arise to take advantage of this. You know, growing up from a very humble background, I once asked myself a question. What about if the day I was born, my father died and my mother died, no uncle, no cousin, no niece, nobody? Does it mean God created me for nothing? Does it mean God had no plan bringing me here on this earth? And one thing you must realize, that God is not a thoughtless God. He's not a thoughtless giver. He's only man that does things thoughtlessly. Whatever God tries to do or puts together, God has already planned it, thought about it from the beginning to implementation. Therefore, operating from Africa, as tough as the environment may be, we've got a special advantage of being African. And this is something the world envies, unfortunately, and unknown to most of us. the creativity and the hunger of over 1.4 billion Africans, half of them under 25, is revolutionary. Even though the possibilities are not close to being maximized, its existence means we can be both creators and consumers. And more importantly, we can be the market that can produce what the rest of the world needs. The digital gold rush in the 18th century. I don't know how many of us here remember the 18th century gold rush. In the 18th century, the gold rush created millionaires out of miners. But the real wealth went to the people who sold the shovel. Today, data is the new gold, and technology is the new shovel. Are you the gold or are you the shovel? The African digital economy is projected to hit over $700 billion by 2050. But the question is, who will own that wealth? Will it be the people who consume the apps or the people who build them? That is the real question of our time. I shared the story of Tulupe, the ecosystem we are building. It was born out of the desire to be able to add value to the continent. It was born out of the desire to solve the problems I mentioned earlier, the problem of liquidity. Why should a startup raise $5-10 million after 3 years, after 2 years, they're folding up? And one of the reasons is very simple. Besides the poor corporate governance, most of these startups have never managed any business in their life. Beyond having the algorithm, being able to identify an opportunity, and you're able to come up with an app that solves that, and you present it to some of these venture capital, funders, and they're able to give you money. You can be a founder without being the manager. You can be a founder. You do not necessarily need to be a CEO. I see a whole lot of us carrying, complimentary card, founder and CEO. You do not necessarily need to be a CEO. Now, another reason why some of these companies fail is one, some of them raises funds based on certain market fundamentals, based on certain variables. Of course, you've designed your business plan. You've done your teaser. You've done your evaluation. And suddenly, you're faced with market realities. Maybe currency fluctuation, maybe governmental risk, and several other risks that shows up. And because you do not have an alternative plan, suddenly you begin to struggle. And which is why we feel Africa needs a liquidity pool that can support startups to be able to scale and build a sustainable business. And like I said, within the Tulupe ecosystem, what we've done is that we've been able to design a platform where we'll spend quite enough, but that will help to shift the direction from consumption to creation of what will determine the future of payment within Africa. And what does it take to build? It takes clarity to build. Understanding the problem you are solving, understanding that you're not building to trend, but you're building to solve a need. Creativity is also very key. Creativity means finding new ways to deliver value. Use what you have. Local problems are not a cost. They are a clue to making money, to unlocking value, and to building a sustainable wealth. Of course, you need courage. To a very reasonable extent, I think we already have the above two in abundance here. But what we need more is the courage. And the daring courage means staying the course. Many years ago, I met someone in faraway Pretoria, at Sheraton, Pretoria. I was quite young then. And the guy reached out to me because I was fortunate to be in that particular occasion. It was actually the Nigerian South Africa Pioneer Business Conference in 2022. And while we were talking, and the guy said to me, listen, my name is, he gave me his name, and he says to me that he runs one of the largest private security companies in the United States. And he said to me that what they do, they provide airport biometric services where they fund the infrastructure and provide biometric access in all the airports. And they will also provide both the hardware and the software. And they charge $10 for incoming and $10 for outgoing international passengers. And as at that year, we had like 10 million 10 million passengers annually. So when you times $10 incoming and $10 outgoing, it gives you $20, which is about $200 million annually. And I was still, I was just rounding up a paid employment where I was. So I said to the guy, yes, I can actually handle this. And I said to him, though I lied, but I lied a courageous lie. I said to him, yes, I can solve this problem for you. Who do you want to see? Or who do you want to meet? He said he would like to meet the president of the country. He would like to meet, the officials. I said, consider it done. And we exchanged a complimentary card, and we came back to Nigeria. When I got back to Nigeria, we chatted 1 or 2 times. Then, you didn't have WhatsApp, you didn't have but I had his email. So I went to a business center, somewhere, in Wuse, called Dorman Business Center. I went to send him an email. And I said to him, I've just arrived, and I'm already having conversation on how we can implement your technology across Africa, beginning with Nigeria. And the guy said, okay, that is fine. As a matter of fact, I would like to invite you to Washington, D.C. Would you be able to come? I said, sure, I'm able to come to Washington, as soon as you want it to happen. And luckily, I had a visa I have never used that was nearing expiration. Now, but the question and the challenge now is that I've already told this guy that I have to come to America. I've already told him I'm a CEO. But I needed the courage to complete the lies and to make it a reality. Though I'm not faking it, Mr. Iram, to make it. Then he gave me a date. But that means I needed to buy tickets. I had a monthly pay of less than 45K, by the 45,000 after deduction. So I ran to someone I know that used to work for a particular airline, and I told her, Auntie, I called her name, and I said to her, I need to be in America. She said to me, have you been to America before? I said, no. I said, my passport, my visa will expire in the next 1 month. How can I get a ticket? I can't find a ticket. She said, okay, I can do something for you. I said, what will you do for me? She said, most of these, high network individuals that travel, they have what they call, their air miles. Some of them have never used it. I manage their ticket for them. I can get you an air mile. Would you like to fly first class, business, or economy? I said, no, just give me economy. He said, no, Felix is free. Don't worry, I'll give you business class. And she got me a business class ticket. And because I've never been to United States, so I choose to fly through BWI. And rather than going either through Washington DC or JFK, I took BWI because I saw, I just saw what BWI sounded good, and I landed in Maryland. And before I went on that trip, I had to save. I think the total money I had on me was about $250 altogether. So we landed BWI in the night, which was another problem again. So I managed to check into one of those Acco Hotel residents where you pay $20 a night. But because of my ignorance of the state of the United States, the next morning, I took the yellow cab, journeying to 30th Street in Washington. So by the time, I didn't know you pay, is metered. So by the time I could eventually get to DC, the little money I took from Nigeria, it was almost gone. But I was praying because when I went on that trip, I was on fast. I said, Father, do not disgrace me on this trip. Make sure that this trip is a success. So when I got to 15th Street, so I asked him to stop me on any nearby hotel. And that was how he stopped me on 15th Street at Mayfair Hotel. So as I was walking into the hotel, I went in there with courage. I said, Father, I'm going into this hotel. I'm going to request for a room. When I asked them for a room, they tell me they don't have a room. And when I walked in, the guest said to me, their checkout time and check-in time will start from 3 p.m. Can you wait? I said, yes, I can wait. So a few minutes later, I walked up to her. I said, can I make a call? She said, external call. I said, no, DC. And she said, sure. And that was how we called the company I came to visit. And the lady that picked Judith, the business development director, immediately she recognized my voice and said, Mr. Felix, are you in DC? I said, yes, I've been here for the past 3 days. I came for a meeting with some top government officials. And I'm looking at flying back to Houston. He said, no, you must see the CEO. He needs to see you. I said, okay, give me the next 30 minutes. Let me finish what I'm doing. I will call you back. So immediately she dropped the call. I said, Lord, I thank you. Then 30 minutes later again, I called her again. And she said, where are you, Mr. Chibiri? I said to her, I'm somewhere can we come pick you? I said no, because I didn't want her to come because of the little Ghana must go I was carrying with me. I didn't want her to see my bag. But I spoke to her with courage. I spoke to her with conviction. I spoke to her from the point of positivity and authority. I didn't chicken myself. And also as a founder, as an innovator, you must learn to speak with authority, with the conviction to defend your ideas. Because if you can't defend your ideas, if I can't see confidence and trust in you, why should I believe in you? And 30 minutes later, I spoke with her, and she said, come. And I spoke to the receptionist. I said, I want to go talk to the guy who invited me. I'll be back in an hour's time. Hopefully your room will be available. Can I leave my bag here? She said, fine. And they checked my bag in. And I got to the office on 30th Street. And they asked me, what is the next plan? I said to them, I'm planning to go to Houston, then fly back. They said, no, Mr. Chiburi, we're going to find you a place to stay. After our meeting, we can get you a flight to Houston, if you don't mind. Is the Houston meeting important? I said, no, just to see some families. They said, no, you can see families later. And that was how they checked me into Georgetown Street. If you converse with Washington, you know the Georgetown Street. So when I got into the streets, I was scared, I was sad, I was also happy, because for the first time in my life, I was being checked into such an expansive and a marvelous room with all kinds of facility. Then immediately I checked in, I had to go back to go and pick my bag and return back to the hotel. Then 1 hour later, the CEO came, Dr. Enrique came 1 hour time, and they called me from the reception, Dr. Enrique wants to see you. And I went down straight. He said, Mr. Chiburi, good to see you in Washington. How are you? I said, I'm fine, Dr. Enrique. He said, beautiful, beautiful. I'll take you to my home. I wanted to see my home. I wanted to see my family and all that. And he pulled out, and it was his Lamborghini, and I drove with him to where you have the CIA building. What is it called? So I drove with him to his building, to where he lives. And he said something to me. He said, Chibri, where I live, you see here, in West Virginia. So we drove straight to West Virginia. So when we got to West Virginia, Dr. Enrique told me, you know why I had to invite you to my home? I interacted you once in Pretoria. I see confidence, I see courage in you. And I know you're quite a young man. How old are you? And I told him. He said, I'm going to support you. So I want to tell you a story between the poor man and the rich man. And he said to me that what makes the difference between the poor man and the rich man is the conviction, their courage, their ability to take advantage of the situation. And that is what I see in you. And when we finished with Dr. Segura, he brought me back again to Washington. To cut the matter short, eventually we signed an agreement with them to implement that project across board. But of course, the system happened to me. I drove that project for 10 years. I never gave up. But unfortunately, at every point of that project, we met a stumbling block. In fact, a former minister for aviation, who later became a governor of one of the states in the north, ran into me one day at the Heathrow, and I went to greet him and said, Excellency. And I said, Felix, what happened to our project? I said, Excellency, I got tired after 10 years. He said, I understand. Doing business in Nigeria, in Africa, you must have a bank of patience, field to the reserve. So to young developers and young entrepreneurs here today, another quality you need is patience. You need patience. And if you fail in one today, it doesn't mean you failed in everything. For every failure or everything that looks like a failure is actually a stepping stone to something bigger, something greater. We started building what we're building today because I failed in 2 other transactions similar to what we're trying to do today. But the lessons learned from those failures were retained. And it's on the back of those lessons today that we are pushing through, where we are getting today. So the greatest entrepreneurs, like I said, are not those who have failed, are not those with the best ideas, but those who refuse to give up on them and their dreams and keep pushing. Attracting funding. Investors are also not just looking for big ideas. They are looking for focused execution, show retraction, show that you understand your customers, show that your business can survive without hype, that it can resonate with the sugarcane farmer in Sokoto as well as palm oil merchant in Akwa Ibom State. One of the use cases we are trying to drive within the Tulupay ecosystem is how can I help the trader in Kenya to buy his goods from China without struggling on how to convert a shilling to dollar and dollar to yuan? How can I help the trader in Accra to buy goods in Kano without struggling on how to convert his naira to a dollar and dollar, his CD to dollar and dollar to naira? And that can only happen when you have a seamless, integrated one ecosystem that speaks to both Web 2 and Web 3. In this way, you're able to build and to provide the needed solution that can catalyze the growth of Africa and possibly catalyze our GDP to $10 trillion. Building a culture of innovation is beautiful. Innovation is not just the app or the startup. It is about a mindset. It is about a courage. It is about a conviction. A company, a country, a continent becomes innovative when it stops asking, who will fix this? And who will do that? What can we do? What we have with what we have. The digital revolution must not be a spectator event. It is for everyone, students, entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers. We all must come together to build a creative, innovative Africa where everyone will be proud of. God bless you, and thank you.
Let us give him a super round of applause. I thought he was going to get a standing ovation from this crowd of young people. I thought he was going to get a standing ovation for that inspiring moment. I'm sure your minds are open, and this is just the beginning. Super appreciation to you, Mr. Felix Achibiri. And like he said, you are not building to trend, you are building to solve problems. This is just the beginning of the wealth of knowledge that we're going to receive at today's event. SM Fest Abuja! Africa Unlocked. I need your energy alive. SM Fest Abuja! Excellent one. Now we're moving on to the next session. Without much ado, Sterling Bank is a pillar of financial innovation in Nigeria. And of course, as we know, they're constantly seeking to empower individuals and businesses to grow. Today, their leader will be sharing their vision on what it truly means to be built to last in a rapidly changing world. And what I want right now is a big round of applause for the CEO of Sterling Bank, Mr. Abubakar Suleiman. A super round of applause for him.
Good morning. We're set to go. I cannot hear anything. I want to find out if we're ready to go.
Yes, we are. We're ready to go.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, Abuja. I hope you can all hear me. Let me start with an apology. I'm supposed to be with you in person, but something came up, something that I could not possibly walk away from. So thank you for choosing to let me share some time with you virtually. As you've heard, my name is Abubakar Suleiman, and I'm hoping that some of my experience, not just with Sterling Bank, but in the years that I've lived, will be helpful to some of the younger ones. I've been asked to speak about build to last, and it was very precise. They gave me 17 minutes, so I was wondering what mathematical model led to 17 minutes. I'll do my best to make it count, but I'll start with a question. What are we building? Right? When we say build to last, what are we building? Some of the conversations around build to last has been about companies. Others have written about building nations. But what are you building? Because if you don't know what you're building, then whatever I have to say might not be very useful to you. But I do believe that the most important thing you can build and it's at the heart, at the foundation of everything else that you will build, is your mind. The most important thing you can build is to build a mind that can thrive under any and every circumstances. Because without that, you can't build anything else. So the core part of my experience sharing today will be about how to build the mind, especially how to build a mind that is not fragile, that is anti-fragile. Sometimes we think that the way to build the mind is to dip in, take a topic, and just become the best expert there is at it. And that's an important thing to do. That is particularly useful for solving that specific problem. But building the mind is something that is
We're going to have him connected back very shortly. Please do not look surprised.
I am back, and clearly the infrastructure was not built to last. But yes, I'll take you back from there. I hope you can all hear me now. Yep. So I was saying that in building the mind, it's very easy. It's easy for you to build a particular set of skills. And that is useful in the context. So if you are a scientist and you're very good at that, but that mindset may not serve you well in a social space. It may not serve you well within a cultural environment. So building the mind has to be more than becoming a professional or becoming an expert in something. It's about recognizing the world